Thanks very much and welcome to Cape Town. It's an extremely hot and intensely sunny day here in Cape Town. We're outside the City Hall where, of course, Enoch Godongwana, the Finance Minister, is scheduled to deliver his second main budget speech. Of course, it's eagerly anticipated, especially because as much as it's sunny right now here in Cape Town, the economic feeling and the societal feeling is one of doom and gloom. The picture looks cloudy at the moment, given our economic situation. And at the center of that, of course, is the electricity crisis. And that is likely to be top of the agenda. The President, Cyril Ramaphosa, he set the scene, if you like, at the SONA a couple of weeks ago, where that was front and center of his speech and basically underpinned his speech. So we expect Enoch Godongwana to focus a great deal on the energy crisis. And of course, at the SONA level, we hear what the policies are. At the budget level, we're going to hear how certain things are funded. So a couple of issues is Eskom is expected to get some sort of relief from government. Enoch Godongwana did mention something at the midterm budget last October, indicating that government was looking to take about a third to two-thirds of Eskom's debt. So we'll get more detail, hopefully, on that. Although at the moment, it seems as though the Finance Minister or National Treasury haven't really gone out to creditors of the 422 billion rand that Eskom currently owes. They haven't really gone out and had discussions with them. So it's not clear, the extent to which we're going to get detail on that. But what we do understand is that soon after budget, National Treasury is going to engage with especially international investors as well as local investors around that debt and how it's going to be managed and what the details will be. So we're keenly waiting on that. The other issue, of course, is the incentives for businesses and households around how they can go ahead and install rooftop solar technology, because, of course, that will help to alleviate Eskom somewhat. We're in a dire situation at the moment. Eskom put out a statement earlier indicating that there's a 7,000 megawatt gap currently, which basically means that we are at stage 7 load shedding, although they've not announced that. But there's a 7,000 megawatt gap that they're having to deal with. So the situation is quite dire. And of course, we are expecting the minister to speak to a whole myriad of issues, not just energy, although that will be front and center. The other issue, of course, is infrastructure. We need the economy to grow. The economy is expected, according to the Reserve Bank, to grow at 0.3%. Many of the private sector economists are still talking about sub 1%, so they're a bit more optimistic than the SAB. So it's also going to be interesting to hear what the National Treasury, Finance Minister's expectation is around economic growth, because usually their sort of premonitions or forecasts around economic development are not that far away from what the SAB is saying. It's only that they communicate to us officially twice a year, whereas the SAB speaks to us about 6 times a year, telling us what their expectations are. So it's going to be very interesting. If National Treasury is budgeting for economic growth to grow at that is below 0.5%, it will have implications for things like the budget deficit. It will have implications for what they expect in terms of the tax take. In terms of the tax take, it does seem that for the year 2022 to 2023, which ends at the end of March this year, there's an expectation that the fiscus is going to get a lot more money than was expected, say, last year's budget and even at the midterm budget, because of the commodity boom, which may wane because, of course, there's an expectation that globally economic growth is going to wane. We've heard that from the International Monetary Fund. They're expecting that major economies are going to slow down. China is expected to pick up, but of course that's coming from a low base because, as we know, for the longest time they were closed down due to COVID lockdowns as they were trying to manage that. They fully opened the economy. It's still a wait and see as to the kind of impact that's going to have for the rest of the globe. We are a key commodity exporting country, of course, and we rely on nations like China to be up and running. So we see what happens there. But even as we want to rely on a commodity boom, we have the problem of Transnet not being able to offer the services that are needed for exports, and we have logistical constraints as well. So even though you can produce material, you're not always guaranteed to be able to export it. So that's another part of the problem. And no doubt we expect that the Finance Minister will also be speaking to Transnet. Economic experts do expect that more money may be given to Transnet to fast track them in terms of them being able to invest in things like locomotives and other efficiencies to be able to better deliver the service to export geared companies. Of course, in terms of many people are wondering what's going to happen around social grants. President Ramaphosa did indicate in the SONA that he was expecting that social grants would move up in line with inflation. So we wait to see if that happens. We are going to be speaking to a number of guests as the day progresses, and we'll keep you informed as the day progresses. And of course, come 2 o'clock, we're expecting Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to give us the answers to our many questions. It's back to you in studio.